This week, Glitter Girl looked out and spotted a scrapbooking conundrum. Why is it that sometimes the pages with our most important stories can be the most difficult to put to paper? Could she find a way to make balancing our more emotional family stories just a little easier through photos and page design? Glitter Girl, can you help embrace the emotional memoir?
Of course I can. Today I want to tell a story of a very specific moment, and it's a story I've been waiting to put into words that are written down. I've thought the story through in my head so many times, but I haven't been ready to put pen to paper, and I think I am now, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a whirl. And I'm going to be working on a double page spread, one 12 by 12 and then a 12 by 12 divided page protector to face it, so that they work together. It's going to give me plenty of room for writing and also for a little bit of extra ephemera and plenty of room for embellishment. Remember at the beginning of this month I started with the mood board and had lots of warm brown tones and aqua. Today I'm ready for a little bit of a different feel from the last two layouts I've made, but I'm just going to take a little step away. So I'm still using aqua pattern paper, but I'm going to replace that dark wood element with gold for now and see how that works. So I'm starting with all of these papers from Crate Paper, actually. These two are from their Love Notes collection. And then the gold doily vellum, which is back in stock, at least it is at the moment, and that's from Maggie Holmes' Flea Market collection. So I really love this aqua print with the different tones, but I like to ground it with the darker color toward the bottom. I'm going to start with this page and then move on to the divided page protector, so I'll just put that aside for the moment. And I want to show you the photo I'm starting with. Sometimes the stories are far more important than the photographs, and I only have one photo taken at the time of this story. It's a terrible photo. This photo is poorly composed, it's blurry, there's not a single bit of it that's in focus, but this photo sums up a really important day to me. So I don't mind that anybody can come by and judge me for the photography. To me, the story is still really important to this particular photo. It's also not a story that's about any of the things that you specifically see here, but this image captures the place, and it's the place that's going to lead the journaling that I want to tell. It's definitely an emotional story, but it's a story that, to me, is grounded with that location. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go. But just wanted to say that I'm not scared to use a photo that's horrible. I'm even not scared to blow it up to this great big size. I printed it on just normal, A4, which is just slightly bigger, or slightly taller, a bit more narrow, paper than the US letter size, 8.5 by 11, but it gave me a lot of extra white on the page, and I've just trimmed it down because the rest of the photo, believe it or not, was even worse. And I wanted lots of space to have journaling and embellishment anyway. So this different photo size actually works really well. So go ahead and trim this paper down so I can get started. And I want to use that gold vellum right behind the photograph so that I have a bit of that lovely special paper and sparkle on this side, and then I'm going to save some of it for the divided page protector. Now when I cut it into pieces to go into a divided page protector, the smaller doilies are going to be more helpful than a big one, because you can see here if I cut 3x4 you're barely going to get any idea that it's a doily. If I cut this one into a 3x4 I get that lovely edge. So I'm going to put the large side on this side of the layout and just trim right along that edge. That gives me all of these lovely edges to use later. My first step in making it really easy to tell those more emotional stories is to make sure I have plenty of room to write and not just one big expansive space, but some other options for places that I could hide journaling or fold journaling up or write in smaller blocks, so that this big space just isn't intimidating with needing to be the place for all of the journaling to live. So since I know I'm going to go ahead and make this a double page with a double page protector, I think it's actually easiest if I go ahead and allocate where things are going to go, and then I can see where I'm going to write what parts of the story. So I have my 12 by 12 and my 12 by 12 page and my 12 divided page protector. I have one other image I want to include, but it's not actually my own photo. It's a postcard I bought on the day. And for now, I think this can live up here. It looks like this isn't exactly the right size for the pocket, so I'm going to need to crop it and maybe use a mat or something a little around the edges because it's just a bit too small, but I can come back to that. Just need to know what's going to go where and make sure I have plenty of spots. Now, I've cut one 3x4 from the crepe paper, this sheet that I pulled out at the beginning, and that one can go in here somewhere. And then the rest of these cards are from the Polka Dot Party Dear Lizzie Project Life mini kit or smaller edition. It's this size that comes with 100 cards, and you get 2 of each of the 3x4s and 1 each of the 4x6s, and it coordinates with all of the Polka Dot Party collection. So I have some of these in both aqua, and then I wanted to throw in a little pink, and the pink will make sense in a little bit when I get into the story a bit. So I have some of these that are just for titles and some for journaling. And I have a little secret spot for journaling. I wanted to take 2 of the same card, and I'm going to turn them into a little hidden space to put journaling inside that you wouldn't know the journaling was there. And I think I like those in that order right there. Except I realize I've just left out my spot for the vellum that I definitely wanted to bring in over here. So one of these is going to have to go, and I'm not sure which one it's going to be. It might be that I just combine that with something else. So I'm still going to use that technique, but it might not be those 2 cards. Let me just place those to the side for the moment, and I'll see what I come back to. And then I have some journaling cards for the bigger spots. And maybe this one with the heavier band would be nice as the opposition to the darker, heavier band at the top there. And then a little bit of pink. Now I have 2 cards that say the same thing, and my thought when I pulled this one out was that I was pulling this out for the color, and I might cover this up. So I think that might work well. And I'm still not going to be 100% on what's going to go on what here, but I will pick that out very, very shortly. But what this does is give me plenty of room to see where I can put titles and journaling and where I can hide some journaling versus what journaling I want to put out on the page. Because this is a story where I want to put some of the words on the page and make it obvious, and I want to have other words that are just for my eyes or for something that maybe you need a little permission or you need a hint to go read it. I'm not going to share it with the world who just flips through my album. And I like dividing stories up like that so that I can tell the parts that are a bit more confusing, a bit more emotionally wrought, and not feel like I have to censor it just for anybody that flips through the page if it's going to be really therapeutic for me to write it down. I don't think that all memories are therapeutic to write down, but some of them are. So I'm just going to go with that. By the way, I've used the Project Life Corner Punch on those 2 cards that weren't Project Life cards, since everything else was, and I wanted to make them match. And whatever I end up doing in this box, I'll do the same thing to make that match as well. So now I can see the space that I have. I'm going to figure out where my title is going to go and which bits of these cards are going to hold certain bits of journaling and which ones will just be for fun embellishment. In the end, it took me 3 cards to write the story that I want to be on show. So I started on the larger card that I could pop onto this page so that I would then have something that matched the pink and the pattern of this side of the page. So now I have both the pink and the aqua on both sides and also the gold. So then I continued the story on this smaller card and finished it up with a couple lines on the ending card. Sometimes it really helps me to actually go ahead and put the words onto the cards in the first place, because I wasn't sure what I was going to title this page, but I came to a really nice last line, and that's what I'm going to title the page. So often I take my journaling and my titles together because I like the title to run into the story, and so it might be half a sentence is the title, and then that sentence continues in the journaling. But this time I wasn't sure. I went ahead and wrote it all down, and then it just worked out really well that last line could make a lovely title. So that's where I'm going to start. And by the way, I found a place for my secret journaling as well. So remember the pink card with the polka dots? It's here. It's just behind this card. And I've just used this bit of washi tape that I had handy at the moment, but because it's washi tape I can remove it and replace it with another color if I decide I don't want that particular one. But inside this little pocket is where I'm going to write the bit of the story that I don't want on display, but I do want in my particular album so that I know the story is there. Now, if I need more space in here, I can just washi tape in more pages. And of course, there are 4x6 cards in the Project Life kits that fold in half. So they're designed to do that. But some of them, I think, when you look at them, you can see that it's folded, and then you would know that it's meant to be opened. And that's great if you want somebody to pull it out and read it. But in this case, when I don't want somebody to pull it out and read it unless I really tell them it's there, that's going to work really well for me, because you can't see anything around the edge that lets you know there's something else behind that card. So unless I tell you, then you would never know. That's the idea. So that helps me. Now, the other thing that really helped me with the 3 different cards, and I had in mind that I could continue to write on these cards if the story carried on, but it meant that as I naturally got to the end of a card, I felt the motivation to kind of change the train of thought. So this is a story about starting a day with horrible, horrible news, a horrible, horrible day, but a day that changed dramatically. And the story is all entwined to me with a particular place where all this happened. I'd had a horrible day. I went to my favorite place in London to kind of try to brighten things up. I tend to refer to this museum as my reset button, because when everything else is dark and gloomy, I know that I can find some little spark of something that will lift my spirits there. And I didn't really expect much to lift my spirits that particular day, because it was a horrific, horrific day. But by the end of that day, before I'd left the museum, I had some truly brilliant and life-altering news. So it really did escalate, and it has to be more than just my favorite place in the city now. So I joke that it must be my favorite place in the world. So I've started with that idea of writing about the place, and I set the scene for how it was not a very good day. It was a very bad day, and I didn't have a lot of expectation. Now, that's something that I could have carried on writing on and on and on, because when we start to write about darker feelings or unhappiness, it can be that all of a sudden the pen just goes and goes, and you can fill a book writing about all the negative things. But when I got to the end of the card, I felt the need to go ahead and change gears. So I changed gears and started to talk about how there was a little bit of break in the mood. I went out into the courtyard. There was sunshine. I talked to some friends on the phone and heard some really good news from somebody else. And that then when I filled up this card, it just happened to be that I'd gotten to the point in the story where I could skip to my own good news. And so I moved on to the 3rd card. Now, if I'd written all of that with just an endless stream of notebook paper, I probably would have ended up with an uneven story where I would have told lots and lots of the negative, and then had trouble kind of winding my way through that moment of change and then the positive. But having the 3 cards, or maybe even needing a few more cards, getting to the end of the card just gave me that little push to say, okay, move on from that. What was the next big thing? Rather than go on and on and on and on, like I'm doing now. So why don't I go ahead and start sticking things down on the page? But I hope that might help just a little bit with how you could treat things when you're journaling slightly more emotional moments that seem to be a little more intimidating. This one I'm just going to place here for now. And then with this one here, I'd really like to give this one, and perhaps, actually, I might take all of these right now and give them just a little bit of special treatment. So I'm going to set the rest aside because this bit is a little bit messy. Not too much, but I just don't want to get paint everywhere. And I've mixed up some hot pink watercolor, and I just want to add a little bit of the hot pink and then some gold to these 4 cards. And I think on some of them it would be nice to do a wash, and on some just little drops. So start here. And the reason I wanted to do some with little drops is because there are little drops already in the pattern. So this just brings in a little bit more color. But I also had mixed up quite a bit because I liked the idea of maybe taking a card and dipping it in the watercolor. And this one, I know I'm going to add more stuff to the top of this card, so I'm doing a whole bunch of kind of random dots because I want to cover this part with other embellishment. So I just want to make sure there's enough there that's going to show through. That one has plenty now, so I'll let these 2 dry. And then with this one, I thought I would try dipping it into the watercolor and just see how it wicks up. And always easier to do a little bit at a time. So now can let that roll around, and we'll end up with some pink on one side and the aqua on the other. And this one, trying to decide, do I want 2 of this technique or would I just want a bit more of the splattered dots up here? I also kind of like the idea, I'll be brave. Okay, I've never done this, so I'm being very brave. I'm just going to take my giant paintbrush and kind of follow the little squiggles that are printed on the card. They're a bit like pencil lines. Just so I have a little bit of that color on all of those cards. Yep, and I'm going to let all of those dry. And then on some of them, I'm just going to add a little bit of gold embossing powder just to sparkle it all up as well. Something else that can really help with the smaller cards is they make me be a little bit more brave, because I can try something and not worry about it messing up the whole 12 by 12 layout. I might just need to replace one card. So while these cards, I know some of you are cringing already that this one is so warped because I've soaked it in watercolor and then heated it up, but I'm not worried about that one because I know by the time I'm done with the layout it's going to be flat, and even if that means just sewing it to another 4x6 card that's going to go behind, there's always a way to flatten it out and make it work. And I do really like the color and the finish that bit of glitter embossing powder gives it around the edge. And I've got the little bit of gold down here to match this one, and then on this one I used a word stamp, and it's from that same set that I used way back when I was doing the wedding album for my sister-in-law, but it has some really nice sayings for things other than weddings too, so I used that sunshine stamp there. So these I really like, but I wasn't convinced on how the big droplets came out, because they kind of came out as one droplet of pigment and then another droplet behind that was paler. I wasn't in love with it, but in the Project Life kit I have another card that's the same design, so I didn't have to worry. I'm literally just going to get rid of that one. I'm going to leave this one plain, and happy times, I can just move on. So now I'm starting to have everything I need to get everything starting to look very, very real. So this one was down there. And I know I'm going to have some fun with embellishment there and on this one, and I need to work out what's going to happen on that card there. Going back to the 12 by 12 and adding the title, I wanted to make sure that I got in the colors and the motifs, just kind of starting in the embellishment as well as the wording. So these letters are from October Afternoon in the Daily Flash series, and that pink matches just perfectly with the pink in the Polka Dot Party Project Life kit, so that works. And it comes with both the large and the small letters in the same pack, which makes titles like this with lots of words really easy. Those map print letters are also chipboard from Daily Flash. And then I wanted to bring in a little bit more of that hot pink so that the color wash on the facing page has a little something to pick up on this page, and I did that with some pink Studio Calico thickers, and that's pretty easy. Then just added a little bit of the black and white stripe behind the bottom of the title there so that your eye will go to that part rather than this kind of fading away into the aqua. And pretty simple. Just wanted the title to start framing the journaling. And then have a little bit of a start here to where I'm going with the motifs. I figured since I'm using that doily print, I'll use a doily punch there and started in on some hearts. I want to include more of these little wood veneer hearts just on this page as embellishment. And then I have smaller ones from the same pack from Studio Calico on I want to include on the other side, the facing page. So just kind of make this little grouping of 3 here to link the journaling, the title, and the photo all together. I need something in this area that will be a little bit darker as well, so I might bring in some black ink and some very small stamps to finish that, and of course maybe some enamel dots. Because I have all of those pockets on the facing page, I didn't want to add too much here because I want the story to be where the focus really is. So I just did some small little groupings of the hearts, added some enamel dots, and then a little bit of stamping there at the bottom. And now I'm going to take those same motifs across to the divided page protector. And in terms of trying to find things that would match, I pulled different elements I had from my stash that might work. Like this chalkboard heart is from the same pattern paper collection as the background paper and that black and white paper and the card on the facing page, the love notes from crepe paper. And then I also had some stickers from different Dear Lizzie collections, both the Polka Dot Party and the Fifth and Frolic that came before that. So I figured my chances were pretty high in finding something there that would work, plus an October Afternoon phrase stamp and some Doodlebug enamel dots. So now I need to go back to my 12 by 12 divided page protector and carry this embellishment through to the other side. So that way I can see what I need to balance, and I can start to bring in some of the same sorts of things in the embellishment. So, for example, I've used this heart, which was here. I've got a nice big gold heart that I can add in straight away. And I'll just put some pop dots on the back so that I can move it around for a bit and see where it's going to go. But I think that's going to be really nice down in the bottom corner on that pink card. So for now, I'll just set it there so that I can kind of allocate everything to a good place, and then I'll start actually attaching it all. After plenty of just moving those little pieces around and sticking them in little groups, everything is done. I've kept each card relatively simple and just looked at one little area where I can add in something that matches the other side. So I matched a globe to the map print over here, and the gold repeats throughout. I didn't feel like I needed to dress these up. They look just how I want them there, and I think if I added more embellishment to this middle section, then then your eyes would go further and further away from the story, and that's not what I want at all. But I was able to take some things like the little enamel dots and repeat them so that they match up with the other side. The wood veneer hearts are the same from the other side, but also just kind of look for a few little mismatched pieces that I'd pulled out from that original kit way back at the beginning of January when I had this frame pulled out and this die cut piece. They just ended up being the right color and the right sentiment, and so I didn't mind just kind of grouping a few little random things together if they each have something about them that helps tell the story, even if that's in just a tiny little symbolic way in my memory. So here is my completed double page spread, and your challenge this week, I'll admit, it's a bit of a tough one. We want you to focus on telling a family story. Now, if you want to take the challenge full out, then go with an emotional story that you've been meaning to write down but might be a little bit of a challenge to you. But if you want to take it easy and tell any family story, a nice, happy, lighthearted memory, that's okay too. We'd love to see whatever you make in the gallery. Now, you can do a single page, you can do just a divided page, you can do both, you can do any sort of project you like. It doesn't have to be inspired by this, but I hope that some of the tips have been helpful and that you'll get some of your memories written down. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Join us next week for the continuing adventures of Glitter Girl and the ongoing mystery of the scrapbooker behind the mask at twopiesinAbucket.com.